Time and the writer share a very intimate, if complex, relationship. Years ago, when I first began to write, I realized that along with the other essential components of writing, such as having a vivid imagination, a long and robust memory, and dedication, one of the other skills required was to manage time successfully. How does time impact the creative process of a writer? In many, many ways, I discovered. The first and most obvious way is in the burden it places on the writer in the length of time provided for writing. Whenever a group of writers get together, one of the most discussed topics is the paucity of time for writing. I too felt the shortage of time, and perhaps more acutely than many others, as I juggled many roles in real life along my writing journey. For instance, for many years, I was the only parent in town of a young child growing up, and that left me very little time to write. In fact, one of the reasons I wrote only short stories, short fiction in the early years, was because of these small snatches of time available to do my writing in. Because of the shortage of time, I perfected another technique of writing in my head. As I went about my day, discharging other responsibilities, I was writing the story in my head. As I went about my other chores and errands, I developed plot, I fleshed out characters, I decided on first lines and last lines, I decided on the opening scene and the closing scene. Practically the whole story was written in my head. Late at night, after my young son was asleep, between the hours of 10 to 3, I would write down the story or part of the story, as the case may be. In this way, because I did manage to manage time, my stories got written. And luckily for me, I was a night owl, but this also meant that I was chronically sleep deprived, as I had to get up at the crack of dawn like other parents to send my son to school. Slowly, as time opened up, larger chunks of time were available to me, I grew confident enough to write a novel. Even then, that first novel I remember writing at breakneck speed, always conscious of time or the challenges it could throw up, lapping at my ankles. Sure enough, when I took to writing the second novel, time did throw up a great many challenges. The first, a long period of ill health of loved ones, and other things that come about in life, as most of us face challenges in real life. So how does the passage of time impact a story or a novel? Does it change the narrative process at all? Do stories waver? Does the plot waver? Do characters disappear? Do they change with the passage of time? With the second novel, I had a lot of time to contemplate these issues. And when I finished it, and I looked back at my journey, at the arc of this particular novel, a few things became clear to me. The story per se did not change. The sequence of events, as I had intended them to unfold, did unfold in the same pattern. The tone of the story did not change. What do we mean by tone? As writers, very early on in the process of writing, we decide on the tone of the story as to whether the story would be a serious one, an upbeat one, a funny one, a light one, a gloomy one. The tone I found did not change. What did change were the characters. Not very dramatically, sometimes so slightly, so subtly, that it wasn't even noticeable. But I caught on. I realized that as I thought more and more about the characters, as my thoughts became clearer about them, the characters matured. They took on a clarity they did not have before. Where they were indistinct before, they suddenly became very clear to me. What also changed was the dynamics between the characters themselves. I found them settling into roles comfortable and natural to each other. At the end of those long years of thinking about them, writing about them, I found that they naturally fell into a place. they were meant to be in. A wonderful feeling for a writer. In this time proved to be an ally, a good friend. For a writer, holding on to a story, a character, is a difficult task at the best of times. To hold on to a clear idea, to hold on to a character we have worked hard to build is not an easy task. With time, this definitely becomes much harder. The story appears shaky sometimes, the character is elusive. It's not an easy task. How then did I hold on to this story, hold on to the characters as the years went by? I devised this compartment, a sort of a bag in my head, where I placed the characters and the story, and I met them every day. I made sure to breathe life into them almost every day. And as the years went by, through long periods of illness, sometimes convalescing in the hospital, traveling sometimes, attending to other necessary things, I spoke to them every day and kept them close to me. I was rewarded by characters who came alive whenever I reached out to them, by a story that sprung to life every time I went to look at it. In this way, I realized you could befriend time or it could sabotage you. This time around, as I look to starting my next novel, I'm hoping the time will prove to be the same friend it was to me as I wrote my last novel, that it will lend me all the help and support it has in the past.